presentation first. All right. So hello, everybody. Namaste. Since most of you are Desis here, I'm also a fellow Desi. And yes, as Anup has mentioned, that we are very good friends. We've been going back quite a few years now, and we work very closely in a lot of things behind the scenes that most of you are not uh, aware of, which is nice. And anyway, so I'm glad I'm here. I'm going to show you guys how to do third-party application patching using the supersedence method. But I want to inform you that, while this capability is there in Config Manager, SCCM, there are third-party application patching tools out there, such as Patch My PC, that will do a much easier job for you. If you have the budget, get one of these tools. If you don't have the budget and you are managing, a few applications in your organization, and you wanna patch them because of vulnerabilities and things like that, my method will help you do that. Okay, so we'll just go through a PowerPoint presentation real quick, and then I will do a live demo, and hopefully I'll answer some questions. And okay, let me see. All right, so as Tanu mentioned, my name is Harjit Dalawal. I'm originally from Malaysia. I live in Vermont, USA, and I'm a Microsoft MVP, a config manager, CM admin, and so on and so forth. I'm very active on social media. This is my Twitter handles. You'll find I have also a Tech Connect group on Facebook. Feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Anup, reach out to how to manage devices. It's all great resources for all of you. We all do community work to help you guys in your day-to-day stuff. So supersedence, right? What is supersedence? Supersedence is basically what it says here, a replacement of something that's old with something that's new. And Config Manager allows you to upgrade existing applications using supersedence relationship. Not a lot of people are aware of supersedence, right? They just create an application to push it out, and then when there's a new one, they create another one, and then they push it out and stuff like that. There's a way of doing it where you can actually check to see whether an application is older, and then deploy a newer one to override the old one. Okay. What you see here is a little bit of a trickery. As you can see on the slide here, for example, like these are all old slides because I did a presentation of this exact thing with Anup. I think it was last year. So the screenshots are old, so just disregard the version numbers. But for example, if you see Firefox here, there's a Firefox, and then there's a Firefox Legacy. There's a Notepad, there's a Notepad Legacy. There's a reason for this. Okay, so for example, if you look in the master application, the main application, okay, you got your content location, like where the application is installer is located on your source folder on your config manager server. And then what are the installation command line and so on and so forth. What are the detection methods? Any application that you push out, one of the most important things is the detection method. If you don't have your detection method set correctly, your applications will fail to install or will give you errors when you do that. And then when you look at the fake or legacy application, which I showed you earlier, there is no content location because I'm not pushing anything out. The installation command line doesn't really matter. You can put, whatever you want. And I'm going to show you all of this live in a demo, how to do this, right? And this is a setting that you enable the supersedence. And when you deploy an application by itself without supersedence, you only have these options available and required, right? And then when you look in the bottom here, it says allow end users to attempt to repair the application, and then the next checkbox, and then that's it. You don't have anything here to say please replace with the supersedence. When you apply supersedence to an application, you get this third checkbox located in the bottom that says automatically upgrade any supersedence versions of this application when you deploy it. You don't get that if you don't attach it as a supersedence application, and I'll show you that very soon. And finally, this is again, please connect with me, with all of us that you find on how to manage devices.
I'm sorry, Harjit, I think we lost the presentation.
Oh, I think the presentation ended.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah,
all
it's
right.
Okay.
All right. So you guys can still see my screen?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, so let's do some demo. And so this is my config manager SCCM server that you guys see here. I had to rebuild my SCCM server just very recently. So, and then Anoop said, hey, can you do this session? So I had to quickly build a few applications in here to show you guys today. And so I'll just go through a few applications. I am sure most of you know how to create an application, right? If the basic steps are you right click, you create an application, if it's an MSI, or if it's EXE or, application. MSI applications are pretty straightforward. They're one of the easiest to deploy because when you choose an MSI file, for example, let's try to see if I can find something as an example. So let's just, I don't know which one's an MSI here. Maybe, okay, that's an MSI. So when you do an MSI, when it starts to create it, let me try to zoom it for you guys. And see this here? MSIs was automatically give you the command line for you to use most of the time. The good applications will give you the command line. And this one here, obviously, is MSI exec /install, and the installer name, and then /q for quiet installation. So if you have an MSI, that is one of the simplest way of installing an application, and then you follow through. You do want to I always deploy applications as for system. One of the reasons is also because when you deploy as a user, hardware inventory and stuff like that does not track those installations. They go under the user location on the systems. So it's challenging for you to actually find what applications are out there and things like that to get reporting. Gus Jones from Enhancesoft has recently done a blog post about this, and I can pull that up in a little bit here and show you that information. So we won't do this, obviously. And if you were doing an EXE, you would choose manual. You put in all the details, and next and next and next, and that's basically how you create an application. So what I have done is that I've created a few of these applications, but you'll see here that I've got a folder called Legacy, okay? So let me walk through, for example, 7-zip, okay? All right, so I basically I went through the steps of creating an application, Software Center. I gave it an icon, gave it a name, deployment types. This is where you can select whether you have multiple. For example, if you created one here, but you have like a x86 and a x64, you can create multiple deployment types instead of creating two 7-zip applications here. 7-zip x86, 7-zip x64. You can just do one and then add the deployment types here, which saves you a lot of time and hassle. So if we look at the deployment types, all right, it just picked up an MSI, all the information in there. That's where my source location is. This is the command line and so on and so forth, right? It picks up the uninstall command line as well. And then the detection method, because it's a MSI, oftentimes it'll use the hash of the GUID of the application. You can change to other things, for example, registry settings or things like that, or file system. What this means is that, for example, if you were to change the detection method, what's happening here is this: when you deploy an application, you're trying to tell the application or the systems to check and see, look in this particular path, say program file / whatever, does that exist? If it exists, does this file exist? If that file exists, does these conditions exist? If they exist, then do nothing about it. If they don't exist, then provide the application as available or required to install it at a specific time. Okay? So what I'll show you, for example, I think I have 7-zip here somewhere. Let's see, program files might not be here. There, 7-zip. So you go to C, program files, 7-zip, and then you just pick one of these files. So I usually pick the DLL or the exe file that's located for any application. When you right-click on that and you do properties, and you go to details, file version, this is the exact information that you need. Okay, so for example, this version of 7-zip, it says that version is actually 19.0.0.0. So I create a detection method based on this. Okay, sometimes when you download the application and it will say, oh, it's a version 19.0, but when you install it, this number here changes. It'll be 19.0.1.2 or something like that. So it has to be very precise, right? That's how you find it. You can choose a DLL. It's the same thing right here. Okay, that's how you find it. So the other way to do, if you do file location, I suggest that you use a wildcard such as percentage program files percentage, and then the location or whatever it is. Let's say it's whatever it was called, 7-zip and / right, and then that file was 7zip.exe, and then you would say version is equals to what was that, 19.0.0.0, like that. The reason you use a wildcard, and you notice there is no, let me zoom it again. When I zoom it, do you guys see it, or you guys lose the video?
Yes, we can see it.
it. We can see it.
Okay. All right. So you notice there is no space between program and files. Okay. So you keep it all together, percentage. This is to cover the locations when I showed you earlier. For the x86 and the 64-bit location. So you'll find, hey, go look at these two program file locations and see whether you find the 7-zip folder or not. Is it in here? Yeah, it's in here. Is it in the x86? No, it's not. So skip it. So that's why you use this wildcards here. That's how you do it. Since I already have it, right? So that's basically the detection method for this one, and I'll go through some of the other ones. And then these things are just, again, simple. How do you want the installation behavior? Install as a system, install as a user, and so on and so forth. Whether or not a user is logged on, this is always the one that you want to select, because otherwise, if the user is not logged on, it won't get installed, and you'll just have more failures. Requirements, you can add, various requirements. Do they need to be, for example, do they have enough, memory? How much memory? How much, whatever. I usually don't mess with any of this stuff unless it's like very specific to an application that requires something. This is all defaults. I just leave them. I never add anything here. Dependencies, you guys will know this is for when one application is dependent on another application to be installed first. For example, like a .NET framework or a Visual C++ or things like that. So you would create this application. You say, wait, it is dependent on this other application. And you have to have that other application also created here in order for you to add it. Okay. For example, I can say, it requires Adobe Reader or something like that. Okay. So again, I don't mess with this stuff unless I really need to. So once you've done that, you saved your application, you distribute it to your distribution points, and then you can deploy it. What you'll notice here in the properties of this application, there is a Supersedence tab here, right? If you notice, I have not added any supersedence here yet. This application is deployed as available, and which means that the end users are able to select this application for installation in Software Center. It's there like a catalog. I've got 10 applications. Here they are. Whenever you need it, go ahead and install it, and that's the version you're going to get. And I'll show you how to do this in just a little bit here. Okay, so that's pretty simple. It's an MSI. I've got another one here for KeyPass. Again, these are just examples of applications for you guys. Right, straightforward. I think this one's an exe, if I'm not mistaken. Again, look in the path. What's a program? Does it have any silent switches? Detection method. Here's an example where it goes, right?
So Harjit sir, I just have one doubt. Like, if there is in this path percentage program files percentage, so if this application is for 32 bits, so will this program files detection will also check automatically in under program files x86, or do we have to? Okay.
No, it'll check. Yeah, it'll check.
Okay, so it will check for both x86 and also for normal program files.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Good question.
Yep.
So yeah, so if you notice this key path,
Mhm.
it installs in in program files, key paths, password saved to folder, and then I'm looking for the keypass.exe, and for this version, it was you can see here 2.43.0, and I said equals to. Okay, that's uh, the conditions that I applied. You can always, it doesn't have to be program files. Sometimes some applications, they're not really applications, but they are more like an applet. They just get dropped on the desktop, as a desktop shortcut or things like that. Then you can change this, obviously, browse to wherever that location is, C/user/public/desktop, whatever, and then point to that particular thing that you wanted to detect. Detection means all it means is that does this stuff exist or not? How does this application apply to it, right? So that's basically it. I'll show you another couple, and then I'll do the legacy ones. Again, I didn't apply any supersedence because I want to show you guys how to do that. I think the interesting ones are, I think these are the ones that, like you can also deploy like Flash Player for, IE and Mozilla Firefox and stuff like that, because there's always vulnerabilities every month. Deployment types. Let me see. This one might be a bit different. So see here, this one is a bit different. So this one, I'm telling it to look in the Windows, C Windows location, and then the syswow64, look for this Macromedia, and then Flash. Well, this is where Flash actually installs. Okay, and then look for this particular exe, and that's what I did. And then I also have an or condition here. Also look at, this is not a sys 64-bit. This is the traditional 32-bit. Look in this directory and find that file and that version number. So there's so many different ways you can do this stuff. If I think this one here, the Mozilla one, is also a bit different. I just want to show you guys some examples on what. So you can do it like that too, like C, Windows. All right, so now you guys know. So one of the things that I deployed was Adobe Acrobat Reader, and a lot of these applications actually have built-in update mechanisms. So most of the time they just update by themselves. So Adobe Acrobat Reader, I'm going to show you my workstations here in a second. Deployment types. See the long string here? So that's the file version number that I wanted to find. Look for this file called read32exe. And then I have Supersedence built in here. This Supersedence thing, I just created a folder called Legacy, and this is where I'm putting all my non-deployable, you see they're not deployed applications that become superseded, that supersedes that those other applications that you see. For example, Adobe Acrobat Reader, right? You can call this whatever you want. You can call this Adobe Acrobat Reader fake installer if you want. Give it whatever name you want. It doesn't matter because you're not deploying this. Deployment types. If you notice, content location, I'm not even pointing to my source location. There's nothing. There is no application for this. It's zero. Program files, you can call this monkey.exe, whatever. Just call it foo.exe. We all know that foo.exe does not exist. There's no such thing. Detection method, see, here's I have a bunch more detections, right? I'll show you what they are. Again, I'm telling it, look in that path, look for that file, and look for that number, and then you see the operator is now less than. Before it was equals to, right? Less than. This is the operator I'm using on the fake installer to do the supersedence. I'm also telling it to look for if this exists, great. If that doesn't exist, look at this one. And this one is Adobe Reader 10, because you can have computers out there where people have installed very old Adobe Reader or old applications that they continue to stay there and they don't get upgraded to the new builds, right? So for example, Reader 10, Reader 9, Reader 8, and things like that. You can also say, sometimes you can change the conditions and say, and or. I'm saying if this doesn't exist, or this, or this, or this, or this. If you have a couple of conditions that you need, for example, I want to check this and also this location, for example, like a registry setting and stuff like that. Okay, so now we've done that. And what I did, let's do that on KeePass. Well, let's check on KeePass. So if you notice here on my workstation here, I've got one test workstation. In Software Center, I deployed these applications. I've deployed 7-Zip version 1806. I've deployed Adobe Acrobat, and I superseded it to this version because I deployed an older version. Notepad++. So we'll do one of these examples and we'll show you that it'll actually get upgraded to this new version. Okay. You'll see my other workstations. I've got the application, but I haven't installed it, so I can go ahead and install it. This is available. I can say, oh yeah, give me Notepad too. I want that. Give me this. Let's take it all. Okay. So eventually they should come back with a success. I hope they do. They're downloading, they're installing, installed. I think that one will finish too. So let's go back here. So the reason you do this way of supersedence is because whenever you are trying to do apply supersedence, you technically have to maintain all the previous versions of a particular application. For example, Notepad++. If I want to deploy Notepad++ 785, for example, I have to keep 784 here, 783, 770, 7 whatever, and apply all of those as supersedence because those older versions could exist out there in your organization. So when you do that, you're going to have a huge list of applications here. When you do it the way I'm showing you, this fake method, all you have to maintain is the main application. And you can put all of these here, by the way. You don't have to create a folder, right? For example, if I did I don't have one for Notepad++, but oh, that's a good one. Let's create that. I just need to. We just need to grab this. Okay. So you notice this one here, it says 7840. Okay. All right. So I'm going to create a brand new application because I have in my, I should have 785 here. Yep. I have version 785. Okay. Ignore this, just 785. Okay. So what I'm going to do, the way I do it is that you can come directly. You see, I already have a deployment here. You can undo. You can delete the deployment and start again. You can modify this right away. Or if you want to be like really sure and say, you know what, I don't want to mess with this because in case I make a mistake, let me make a copy of it first. Let's see if I find Notepad++ here somewhere. Yep, I do have it. Okay. Okay. All right. See, it creates a copy, exact copy of that without any deployments, and also it's not distributed. So what I normally do, I come to the main one, I will delete, I'll just delete this. Actually, never mind. I'll wait for that. Okay, I'll come in here. I like to put the version number right in the name, because when it shows up in Software Center, you see it right away. Even though you see it here, it's a visual thing that people can see. You can know the difference. So 785, I'm still using the same. You see, I don't have to change a lot of stuff. I just have to change, okay, content location, that is new. That was pointed 784. I say, look at 785. Okay. The program, yep. If you look in 785, it's called npp785installer.exe. All right. So I go back here. All I'm changing, I already have that same information. Detection method, this is the one that I was telling you about. Some applications, you can actually just go to this installer, right click, details, and it'll give you that information, 7850. Some applications, actually, you have to install it on a test system first, then go to C program files or C program files x86 and go and look for that particular file you're trying to, whatever it changes, right? So if you notice, like here, I'm calling it Notepad++ exe because that's the file, but that's the name of the installer is different. So if we go to here, Notepad++. Okay, look here. Is it the same? Oh, well, I got a newer version, so that's okay. 7850. This is on my computer, not in my lab. All right, so I'm going to say this particular application is 7850 equals to this. Okay, everything's the same. I don't need to change anything else. Come on. All right. So notice now I got two applications, right? The first one, which I deployed, and I can now come in here and delete that previous deployment, say, because I don't need it anymore. And you can then you can retire it, and then it shows up here on the right-hand side. It'll say retired, so you know you cannot deploy that. So I'm going to distribute this guy first. I'm going to show you guys the difference between when you add supersedence and when you don't add supersedence. So distribute first. All right. I'm going to do a deployment. Yep, call it that. Collection. Whatever collections you want. I'm just going to deploy it to my default. All right. So here, you see you only got two options, available and required, and there is no third checkbox. All you can do is, make it is this a required? That means it's going to force it to install. For example, if I do available, it gives you a schedule. Always falls under UTC, but you can change it to your local time. So, for example, my local time is 9 o'clock. I'm just going to say, 9:15 a.m. today. And then, you go through this. If you do a required, it gives you this new schedule. It gives you when you want to make the application available to all the systems, and then when you want to make this mandatory for install, like force it, like on this day, at this time, force it, and it's going to install no matter what. And if the user actually uninstalls this application, Notepad++, the next time it does its evaluation and receives its policies, it will check and say, hey, this application is not there anymore. Reinstall it. It'll continue to force that application to install on the systems no matter what the end user does. So if you always want to make sure that they have one particular thing or any applications, do this method. I'm just going to choose available and proceed, okay? But what's going to happen here, let's choose this. Obviously, these things like the notifications for users. I don't know how fast this is going to show up, but we will find out. And then I'm going to apply supersedence to this. I'm going to come here. So you guys know about this ConfigMgr applet, right? You can go to control panel, system, config manager. This is where you can force the actions to run right away. Or there's a shortcut, and Anup has a blog post on this, and you can do the run command. You can use the SMS control SMS PFGRC, and it'll do the same thing. I'm going to force some actions, some policies to tell it to. So notice I've got 784 here, right? This should change to 785. And I'll do the same on this guy here too. That is. This will eventually go away. It's just that it's not clearing out right away. But so you notice I have this 785, which I just deployed after I copied it. And now it's made available. Now I can click it here and I can install it. But I don't want to because I want it to actually automatically upgrade it. So what I'll do, I'll go back here. I just want to show you how that shows up, right? Now I'm going to create, let's say, I just need this path here. Okay. Let's create a fake application. Like instead of me putting it here, I'll just put it right here to show you what that looks like. Okay. So manual, notepad plus plus. We can call it fake, legacy, whatever you want. I'll just call it fake so you guys can see the difference. Really doesn't matter. I'm not choosing. I don't care. Deployment types. It'll always default to manual. Again, use the same name. Okay. Next, location. I don't care. Installation. Call it whatever you want. You can call it masala.exe if you want. Doesn't matter. Okay. Detection method. This is where this is important. So I'm going to use the file system again, and I'm going to choose this location. And I think the application was Notepad++exe. And then here, I'm telling it, look for the version. If it's less than 7.8.5.0, exactly what the application installation says. Next, doesn't matter. I usually choose just system just to be, but you're not deploying this anyway, so it really doesn't matter on this one. Okay. Okay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move this to a new folder so you guys don't get confused. Let's call this retired. Move this guy. Come on. Everybody still following me?
Yes.
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 Good, good, good. All right. All right. So just to keep things clean, I just moved that old one out. And I'll show you how to actually get rid of an application the proper way. So I've got the main application, the master application, which is distributed and deployed. Now I've got the fake one. It is not distributed and not deployed. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to come to this master. And we're going to come to Supersedence right here. We're going to do an add. And then you're going to browse. And then you're going to, wherever you put that fake one, I just put it right here. I'm going to select that. That's why you give it a different name so you can see there's a actual difference. Once you select it, it'll ask you, what do you want to do with it? I'm going to say, replace it with that. Okay. Okay. And then now I'm going to show you, I'm going to delete this deployment. So that deployment's gone. Now let's recreate a deployment. Again, I'm just doing it to my default collection. You can do whatever you want. All right, now do you notice here? Available, but in the bottom here, now we have this new option, automatically upgrade any superseded version of the application. So even though I install it as available, I deploy it as available, which what does that mean? That means that if I select this box, if any systems that do not have Notepad++ installed ever, if they never have it, they have it available in Software Center for them to choose and install it. Great. But if you choose this option here, it will check and see, hey, do you have Notepad++? Oh, yes, you do. You have an older version, older than 785. So please upgrade to this 785 version because yours is like old. This is what I'm gonna demo it to you. So I'm gonna select that. I usually select this as well, allow users to attempt to repair installation because sometimes people have corruptions. They can just redo it from Software Center. It's a good habit to do. Again, I'm going to choose local time. UTC is basically GMT, which is in UK, right? So what time is it now? Okay, so I'll do, it's almost 9:30. Let's do 9:30. Okay. And then I'm also going to say this, if you recall.
9:30 a.m. right?
It's,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, good catch. Good catch. Yep. So if you notice this bottom section here, this was not available earlier as an available installation. The only reason this came up is because I selected that new option to upgrade older versions. So now you can also give it a deadline and say, hey, you know what? Make it available at 9 o'clock, but start installing it at 9:30, whatever a.m. Or choose a different day and stuff like that. So for my organization, the way I do this is that when I deploy an application, I always test it in my test collections, like immediately, like there's no, delay and stuff like that, because I want to know whether it works. And then when I deploy it to all my systems, I will give it a, you can make it available whenever you want, doesn't matter. But then I will choose maybe like, in 3 days from now, make it mandatory. So I will find out if there's some issues people are reporting, especially like things like Cisco, any Connect VPN installations they can break. All right. So we'll choose this, same thing, no difference. All right. So that's a new installation. And let's do the policies again. I'll run it on the other one too. Yeah, see, it disappeared. Just give it enough time because I think it'll. Maybe I should have chosen like 5 minutes out so that we can see the difference here. But this is supposed to work. It will work. It'll upgrade to the new version. So that's basically how you do supersedence. You can apply it to each and every one of these. If I did, for example, I think I have one here for KeyPass already. So let me just deploy a new version of KeyPass. I'll do a second one, and then we can do questions and stuff. KeyPass. That's a 244. Okay. Do I have that deployed? Delete that deployment. So instead of doing a copy, I'm just going to go and modify this main one. I really don't. So as you can see, it is a bit tedious to do this method because you do have to come in and you do have to change some information every time there's a new version available. But it's there for free if you really need it. I'll choose a different 244 program. I know that's going to be 244. And legacy. Okay, now I'm going to apply it as a supersedence to this guy here. Go to the Supersedence tab, add, browse, KeyPass legacy, replace it. Okay. One of the other things when I modify an application, because sometimes you change the file name or things like that, I come to this tab here called deployment types, and then I update the content. Make sure your distribution points and stuff have the newer content for it. I should have done that for the Notepad++ too. All right. So now that I have this, I don't have any deployments. I'm going to deploy it again. Let's hope this thing upgrades to 244. Come on. And obviously you can use PowerShell and stuff like that to do these things in a much faster way. But this is a demo for you. Install available, upgrade. You can say 9. And I don't know, 38 maybe. Okay, so back to my workstation here. Remember I pushed out Notepad++ 785, and earlier we saw that it was saying install like this, right? Do you notice now I didn't click install. It's already installed. It's it's giving me an option to say uninstall. That's how Supersedence works. And if I go and check on this particular workstation, .7850 is installed on this system. Same thing is going to happen with because it yeah. So KeyPass should come up here very soon.
Hi, Harjit. I have a question. So
Sure, go ahead.
I noticed that while putting the Supersedence in that application wizard, you did not select that uninstall checkbox.
Uninstall checkbox in the deployment?
Yeah, in the deployment. So you changed the option from do not replace to use the KeyPass script. And there was one more thing to select the, to check the uninstall. So.
Oh yeah. I didn't need to because if you select the uninstall, it's actually going to uninstall, but not because you can deploy applications as install or uninstall too, right?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. So if you don't need to do the uninstall because it'll automatically do it and then replace it with a new version that you're telling it to do.
Yeah. So my question was the same thing. Does that mean that if I check that uninstall, will it do the same thing what it does when we check the automatic upgrade of the older version? Is the both options?
I lost you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying, is that option where we check the uninstall and the option where we check the automatic upgrade of the superseded version, is that both the option does the similar thing? Since basically both are uninstalling the older version and upgrading it to the newer version. Is my understanding correct?
Hey Harjit, this is Harsha. Can I jump in here for a minute, please? If you're okay.
He's on mute.
I don't know, Harjit, I think we are not able to hear you. If you are speaking, right, we lost you in between. Your sound is not coming.
Okay, Anup, this is Harsha. In the meantime, can I answer her question? So
Yeah, please go ahead. Let me
so
ping Harjit and you go ahead with your answer, please. Thank you.
Okay. So what happens with the uninstall checkmark button is, usually when you checkmark that uninstall button, so if your previous application deployment has uninstall command, it would run that uninstall command and then it would run the install command for the new application. If you don't checkmark that box, what it's going to do is, SCCM is going to identify like, oh, this is the older application, so I need to supersede that, but it's not going to run anything from the previous application where you have the uninstall command specified. It's going to ignore that. If you checkmark that, then it's going to run the uninstall parameters, whatever you have defined in the previous application. So most of the applications nowadays, it comes with the in-place upgrade, especially the MSIs. If the application doesn't have any, if the MSIs doesn't have an in-place upgrade code, that's when, you will be actually doing like, clean uninstall and doing the fresh install instead of, doing the in-place upgrade.
Okay, so that means basically all the MSI applications, we can use that automatic upgrade of supersedence option.
It,
That will
it
help.
depends how the MSI has been built.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what I would suggest is open the MSI package using Orca or any other MSI tools, whatever you have in your organization, and look for the upgrade code table and see whether the upgrade code table has been defined properly. If it is defined properly, then it's going to do an automatic uninstall of the older versions.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Thank you for answering.
Yeah. So I never,
Harjit.
I never.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
hear me now?
You're back. You're back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank. Good, good. Yeah.
So I never choose that uninstall option in the supersedence. I've been
I don't
doing
know.
this for a long.
Sorry. Before you go ahead, I don't know. Like, I can hear a lot of background noise. If you can mute yourself, please. If you are not speaking, can you please mute yourself?
There you go. Okay. So I've been doing this for a long time with this method, and I've deployed all sorts of applications out there, like really like a lot of different applications. And I've never had to change that supersedence method to uninstall. I think probably once, maybe for one particular thing, but in general, EXEs, MSIs, even scripted applications, they will all just do what you need to do. If you really want to uninstall an application, like you want to deploy and say, you know what, we don't want Notepad++ to be on any systems anymore in our organization, then when you're doing a deployment, instead of doing install and available, you can choose uninstall. And obviously it's going to be a required because you're forcing it to uninstall and then deploy it that way. Okay. So I will show you, like, here's my organization. I've got a ton of applications that I've been deploying in the supersedence method, and I have no issues whatsoever. So anyway, so we were hoping that this will work, but
Harjit, I have a small doubt. Can we define any restart during the application deployment? Suppose if you want to do restart after the installation, is it possible?
that would be part of your command line. So whatever your command line is, if you have you can if there's a restart capability, you can put it in there. But generally, applications don't require. Some applications will actually force a reboot, right? I can't come up with some examples right now, but they'll say, when you install it manually, at the end it'll say, "Oh, please restart to complete it," or whatever.
Yes.
But that is why you use those silent switches and the /s or /q and / no reboot or whatever, because you don't want the system to reboot right after they install an application on the user. So you can set up like maintenance modes for your collections and then do a reboot at that particular time, like overnight or after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening or whatever you choose, right?
Yeah.
So if you can hold off with the questions, probably Harjit will provide you some time to have question and answers. Otherwise, probably we will lose our track.
Right.
Yeah,
So
sure.
a couple of tricks for you guys. Let me see if I can find some tricks. So sometimes when you install an application, so some applications will come with an EXE or an MSI. For example, Mozilla Firefox, right? When you go and download it, they'll give you an EXE or MSI. You can choose which one you prefer to use as your installer. I have, for a while I've been using the EXE method, and then I just stayed with it. But what happens is sometimes you want to find out. Let's say, for example, the 7-zip here. You want to find out what the hash is or something like that. But oh wait, hold on. Let me look at Mozilla Firefox. Let me see if this is EXT. I think this is an EXT. Yeah, it's an EXT. So I've got a /silent here. So for example, if I come to a detection method, right? Sometimes you're looking for, oh wait, I need, you know, I need the MSI exec /x and then the hash, right? But I don't know what the hash is. Like, how do I find that? There are some PowerShell ways you can actually do that, but it's a, you know, it can take a little bit of time. One of the tricks I do is that I will do this. I'll say add a class. I will say Windows installer, browse, go look at that folder, click on that MSI, and automatically it gives you that hash, which you can copy and use on the other side. Plus, at the same point in time, it gives you that version number for that file. So instead of you trying to like figure out what it is and, you know, stuff like that, that's all you can do. So when I usually just copy this, let me show you a better one. I think, which one had that hash? I think it was this guy here, maybe. So a lot of people will ask, see this hash here? So usually it'll come up by itself, right? When you use an MSI installer. But let's say you did a copy of this installer and then you did a, you know, because you're creating a new version. Let's say whatever version this is, you're changing it. But you come here, this ID is going to be the same because you copied it from the previous one. Then all you do, you just do this. Again, you do Windows installer, browse, and then look for that. Where is it? Oh. It gives you that information. You copy that. We cancel out of this. We come here, and you can add it this path, or wherever you need to, right? You may want to use that for this installation here and just change that to this particular thing. So various ways of doing it. So instead of using PowerShell or some tools to convert that information, that's how you can do it. That's some of my tricks. So the other things you do is basically keep a logical flow of your applications. So, you know, you obviously you have your source folder, you have your apps, and then whatever apps you have. And what I normally do is I keep different versions of it, right? Because I had deployed this one before, I had deployed this one, and then this the newer one, and let's say 76.0 comes out or whatever, or 75.1 comes out or whatever. I'll create a new folder and I'll add the installers in there. And then later on, you can go in and remove these because they're starting to increase your storage. But if you don't use the supersedence method, you do have to maintain all these versions here because each of these things you create has to be available here in order to apply as a supersedence. With my method, you don't have to do that. You just have to create this fake and then master, fake and master, fake and master. Very simple approach. Another thing I was going to show you, let's say you do want to get rid of some old applications you're no longer deploying and stuff. You know, you could do a delete. The first thing you do is you set it to retire. But what you do is you right click and you do revision history, I believe. And you should see all the different revisions here because every time you made a change to that particular application, whether you change the the title, or you added an icon, or whatever, it all puts a revision here, so you can actually, kind of, go to it and see it and stuff like that. So I normally come in here and I'll delete the revision. And again, I'm sure there's a PowerShell method to do this. Now, as soon as I do release the last one, it's completely gone. It gets rid from everywhere, from your distribution and all that fun stuff. That's how I was told to do it a few years ago, and that's how I keep doing it today. So that's basically the gist of, yeah. So you remember I deployed 2.44 as Supersedence, and I 2.43, it is already now installed automatically. I did not have to do anything. So all my applications are getting patched and updated to whatever versions I push out. Pretty cool, right?
Yep. Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. And you can see on, I think this number 3 here, Workstation 1 and Workstation 2, I had manually installed those applications, the old applications first, and then they got superseded. No problem. It upgraded to a new version. Number 3, I have not installed these applications before. So they're just sitting here available because I don't have Notepad++ on this system. I don't have KeyPass on this system. I don't have, I don't have Acrobat Reader on this system, and so on and so forth, right? So now if I'm just a user and this is a new machine or whatever, and I needed these applications, they're available here, and I just click and I can get it. But the next time I push out 786 or 790, it will definitely automatically upgrade the version here, because I already have one instance of this particular application on the system. That's how you do supersedence. So this is a way to, if you have low budgets, you don't have the money in your organization to buy tools and things like that, this is the one way you can do to upgrade your applications to new versions, to maintain them for security reasons, to mitigate vulnerabilities, and so on. If you do have a little bit of budget and you want a better tool to do a lot of automation and stuff, I personally, and I know Anoop has done some videos on it as well, is this tool called Patch My PC. I don't get any money out of this, but I'm just going to show you how it works real quick in case you're interested. When you install Patch My PC, you get this little application. You will get your license information. You will, you can with Patch My PC, you can deploy applications, and you can also update applications, like with software software updates. It uses the software update point to deliver these applications, like you're deploying Windows updates, right? So, for example, you come in here. I can choose, for example, Irfan View, maybe. Hey, give me that. Malwarebytes, whatever applications you need. There's a huge list for it. PDF 24. If you are doing, let me try to find something. Putty, maybe Putty. Okay. There's a sync that you can run. I'm just going through this real quick just to show you a little bit of what this tool does. So I chose this ConfigMgr Apps option. I'm telling it to place these applications in the Patch My PC application node because I want it to separate from the applications that I manually deploy or install. So it goes to this location. And then if I want to do, if I want to patch these applications, I can use the update mechanism and then select the applications again, and it will go and find that for me. It also has a capability to check your connect to your SCCM database, your SQL database, and looks for hardware inventory for all the systems in your organization that are reporting back with data, and it'll say what applications have been installed. So I have a very small list here, but if I had more applications out there, I would get a huge list that would show me like, oh wow, there's this user installed, there's some weird installer here that I've never heard before. It'll show it here because it's coming from the database. And then you can select it and say, you know what, create an application out of it or create an update out of it. So this tool is pretty robust. It's pretty good. And what it does is that it creates these applications automatically for you in your config manager. And then you can deploy it like you normally do with just like your other applications. And what is nice about the stuff is that it keeps, whenever you do that sync from the PatchMyPC tool, it will go out to these locations wherever these companies provide their installers, and it'll add that to the repository, and it'll update the applications for you automatically. So you don't have to do the create, new, copy, and all that fun stuff. It'll just put new things here for you all the time. And then you can use, I'm not doing a lot of justice for this application because I'm just going through it real fast for you. But he's got videos, and Anoop's got videos too about this. So I'll show you all the applications that I can patch, and I can deploy it as like a Windows Update application, like a patch. All right. So basically, the gist of today was that we were going to learn how to do supersedence, and I think I've showed you how to do that. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes, Harjit. Actually,
okay.
Yeah, Harjit, sir, I just have one doubt. If you are installing any application, so before installing that, can we identify whether this application will require certain restart during deployments? Because
right.
Yeah,
The
because
only
what
way
happened?
to know that is you have to install it on a test system first.
Yes. So no, because what happened in my case last month when I've done the testing on 2 or 3 systems for certain applications, so it worked fine. But when I've made the deployment on the production machines, and at that time I've made those deployment in the required mode, and at the same time I've made the 2 or 3 applications to be made available in the required mode. So in that case, what happened, like in certain, I mean, some servers took restart forcefully. So what I did is I've checked the deployment and went to the return codes, and I have to manually change the return codes to no reboot. Then the rest of the server didn't got restart. So in order to avoid that, certain applications, if are getting installed with some other application at the same time, so can we check such a scenario before making those deployments in the production?
Did you select add the silent switches for it to not do a reboot?
Yes, I did that.
Like a /no reboot or /r or something like that?
Yes. So when I've analyzed the logs, then I got to know that it got that certain servers got reboot because the particular return code that was made available. And when I further checked the return code, so it got to know that it is a hard reboot. So I then edited those return code to 0, no reboot. So if you can, Yeah. So if you can check
I
in.
never have to do. I've never. Do you know what kind of application that is?
I think it was like Cisco WebEx and some other applications. For example, in Notepad, if you check it on the deployment types and under detection, on the second last column, there will be a return code. Deployment types. Yeah, open this.
Yeah.
The second last return
So
code.
you changed it here.
Yes. So I have to manually edit it for 1641 and 1618 at 0. As success no reboot, then only like my rest of these servers didn't got such triggered for restarting.
So this is a typical example for probably a bad packaging of MSI,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So probably like Firefox, right? If you have ever tried to deploy Firefox MSI, you will see a lot of issues with that MSI, because that is kind of a bad MSI what do you call creation process they are going through, right, within Firefox. Probably this is one of that kind of an application you are mentioning about. But I honestly speaking, I have not experienced this kind of an issue before, but
Okay.
probably, but I heard about this kind of issues before as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had an issue where applications, even after a silent install, do the reboots like that, unless the applications have a underlying dependency. So some of these applications, they don't tell you, but they actually, when you actually expand them out, you can hold on. Let me see if I can find it. I don't think I have it here, but.
But in application deployment as well, there is an option that says determine the client behavior, and you need to manually go and select do not take any action. If the action is set to the config manager client to decide, it might trigger a reboot. I do understand the question asked, and this was one of the case that I came up with. And the solution was to go back to the deployment properties and manually select that option.
Okay, I guess it's a case by case basis on the applications
Absolutely.
itself, right? So what I'm saying is that sometimes you can, right click on an exe file, and then, for example, like Adobe Reader is one of them, right? When you actually download Adobe Reader, you don't get this part, but when you get something like this, and then when you expand the MSI or whatever it is, it gives you these additional files, right? Your setup, data, and all that fun stuff. Some of the applications will have like a Visual C++ or some other dependency inside that you're not aware of. You're not seeing it because it's all packaged together. So when that happens, those things will trigger a reboot. So you have to be very careful also. Like that's why you test it, make sure. So you may already have on the system that you tested it, you may already have that dependency installed from some other previous application, some Windows update or something like that. But the systems that you're deploying to, you don't have that available yet. So when it installs it, it says, oh, this is required. This is part of a patch, and it requires a reboot because it's already past the mandatory deadline for whatever your software updates were. This has happened before, even with the SCCM client. Anoop and I did some. We both worked together a few years ago. Remember?
Yeah, I was about to say that you had the same experience in the production, right? After client upgrade, the client got restarted suddenly, right?
Exactly. You'll see. I think it's in here. Let me see.
To add one point, I believe we have to go to the documentation part of any application once to understand the behavior of that application sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
because
look at this, right?
They give different requirements and could be, and they give some certain ideas on whether it might require a reboot or it doesn't require a reboot, like that.
Right. Whenever I have users or departments ask me to deploy an application for them, I always ask them, sure, give me the installer and find me the command line silent installation, text for it. They'll be like, I don't know. I'm like, well, you need to find that for me, or if not, I'll have to find it. But there are some applications you go and you cannot get that information. They just don't have it. That is when you run into these problems. Sometimes I've seen where the command line, it makes a difference. For example, /q, whether you use a lowercase q or you use a uppercase q or a lowercase s or an uppercase s. It all depends on how that application was developed. It's a case by case basis. So what I want to show you here is that, so this is the SCCM client that is available from the SCCM server. But when you expand further into it, you can see there are some additional things that it requires, right? Visual, SIPA, redistribution, and I don't know what version this is. So what happens is, in the past, when I think it was SCCM 2012 R2, whatever, when they were moving from one version to another and stuff, not a problem. You upgrade your thing and you automatically creates new SCCM clients. They get distributed, clients get upgraded, great. But there was one version of a SCCM upgrade that they changed the one of the Visual C++ requirements, and it wasn't documented. And what that Visual C++ was actually a very old software update from like a few years before. So when you are deploying software updates in your organization, and if you have a deployment that you've made mandatory like a year ago or whatever, and that particular Visual C++ or dependency is part of that old deployment, it's obviously going to say, hey, wait, this is way past you. You need to install, oh, wait, it also requires a reboot. Go do it now. And all of a sudden, all our systems were rebooting like out of the blue. And we were wondering like why. And that was the case. So it could be part of that too.
Harjit, if you can check on the chat, I've shared a screenshot, and I think that's the option that we usually forget to modify.
The chat, okay. I'm not going to see the chat though, unless I.
Or that's okay. If you can just do right click on any of the application on your screen and go to the deployment.
In here?
Yep, go to the deployment types and edit. There has to be a user experience tab. Yes, click. Yep. And if you see the last option, should configuration manager enforce specific action, specific behavior regardless of application intended behavior? And by default, it is determine behavior based on return codes, and that will trigger a reboot.
If it requires a reboot, yeah.
And if you make no specific action, then you will be 100% sure the machine won't restart.
Right. I've never had to do this for any of my applications that I've deployed. So it's a very unique cases that I guess you need to do something like this. Also, like in my organization, which I didn't show you guys here, we got some very unique scripts that we use to deploy some of these applications because, for example, things like what we discovered, like things like Mozilla, Firefox, Flash, Java is another one where if it is being used on the system, let's say if it's open, right, it's being used and stuff like that, and Java is open and all that stuff. When you deploy these applications, they will actually fail to install. They just won't work because it's open in the system tray. It's open in one of the DLLs is running and stuff like that. So we had actually, one of my colleagues had created a VB script a few years ago, where it'll go and look for any instances of that application and kills it first, removes it from system tray, removes it from task manager, and all these places. Then once that is done, then follow and install the application. And that was all in part of the same command line um, in the installation properties. So there are various ways of doing this stuff. I'm just showing you like very simple, you know, exe and MSI and just do that. But the way we have it is pretty convoluted. So to avoid those kind of things. Maintenance modes, maintenance windows is another way you can manage your reboot timeframes. So you can always deploy, make them install, but then they don't reboot until specific maintenance windows that you set for your collections. That's another way of always making sure. Any other questions?
Hi,
Kai,
Harjit.
sorry, Kayam, when you make that change as no specific action, the systems in reports, will it show like pending for a reboot or something in the report? I mean, I agree that it will not do any manual automatic reboot, but in the reports also it will say differently, or it will wait for the reboot to complete. Do you have
No,
seen that?
it will never say pending reboot unless you are doing this for a Windows update or something. For an application that is installed, the detection policy will report back that the application has been successfully installed. And
Right.
you have suppressed the reboot, so you don't need any other. It would be like a completed successfully.
Okay, even though error code is something else, still still it will
Well,
show
if
error.
the installation has failed, then it is failed for sure. But if the error code is for
Yeah,
pending reboot, it won't say anything.
yeah,
Okay.
he's right because it's all based on the detection method that I mentioned before. Applications are all based on this detection method that you do, right? So it doesn't matter whether it needs a reboot or not. If it finds it here in this path, it finds that whatever you set, whether it's a registry, H key local machine, and so on and so forth. If it is there, it finds that particular key or data that you specified. That's all it matters. That's all it cares about. It won't report back on anything else. So I had like a notepad that I captured some information before, like this is these I was going to show you guys some of these things, but I guess you guys get the gist of it. But when I deploy the Cisco AnyConnect VPN client, this is the installation it uses, this is the uninstallation, this is the detection method where it looks for in this path. It looks.
Harjit, if you are showing the notepad, we are not able. At least I am not able to see that. I can still see the console.
Oh, you're not seeing it? Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second. Just give me a second. I'll copy it over to the. Okay. Let me put it. Okay, there, not bad. You guys can see that now?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I just created, like, real quick yesterday. I'm like, oh my God, I got to show these guys all these different things. And, so you can see, like, for example, like Java, you need to look for it in, here's the path. It looks for java.exe. And then the detection method, you also say, and also look in this registry for this particular hive and key and string equals to x86 if it's a 32-bit, or look for this particular thing and so on and so forth. So you got various ways of doing detection methods for it to determine that is it there or not. For example, like when you install Java on a system, it puts it in different locations of the on the system that so when if you just choose like, oh, just look in this path, it won't upgrade because it's not determining this other places that it needs that information from. So there's a lot of trial, test, headaches and troubleshooting that created these things. Adobe Flash Player, it's the same thing. I don't know if I have a legacy version of it. I think I showed you guys this before, but I could be wrong. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, I think I did. Right? For Flash Player, look for ActiveX, look in this hive, look for this key, look for this value, and this. Or look in the sysfile 64, 32, location, and so on. So these are all trial and error methods that we found to successfully deploy applications. Every application is different, right? You got different silent installers, you got different command lines, sometimes you got to do something like this. Don't check for the updates. Don't create the desktop shortcuts and stuff like that. So, but you know what? You guys feel free to definitely, contact me or contact us and use the How to Manage Devices forum, which is very successful, to post questions and hey, I've got this thing, I'm trying to deploy this particular application, I'm having issues, maybe give us some your screenshots or log files and stuff like that, and then can help you with that. Or if you're looking for silent installers for it. One of the things that I just discovered is that, for example, like you guys know about this application called PDF Creator, right? It's a free PDF Creator. So a lot of places were using this PDF tool called PDF Creator. There's a free version of it, and it's available for many years. And because people didn't have the license for Adobe Acrobat, the full version it's really expensive. And this tool actually helps you like modify and edit PDFs and things like that. But what I've discovered is that the newer versions, after version, I can't remember, 3. Let me see what version it is now here. But whatever the version is now, they no longer provide you with a silent installation string. This application does not do that anymore. So you're not able to deploy this in any fashion in your organization because they just removed that capability out of it. So you will find when you deploy this, you're like, hey, it used to work. It worked last year. It worked the year before. It worked 6 months ago, and it comes down to this, because this particular organization decided that they changed that. They don't want to give that ability for people just to deploy the free version. They want you to use a professional version. So many different scenarios like that.
Hi, Ajit.
Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sudhir here. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have machines with multiple versions of Mozilla Firefox.
We lost you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I have machines with multiple versions of Mozilla Firefox installed. So, for example, Mozilla Firefox 56 and 49, 48 versions. One is in 32-bit, one is in 64-bit. If I do install of a new version, suppose 75 version, with the supersedence, what you have shown, that will work or not?
Oh yes, definitely.
Means that both versions. Yeah.
So looking at my screen, you have Mozilla 74, you have Mozilla 75, you have Mozilla 72, and so on and so forth, right?
But all those applications, Mozilla older versions are not deployed through SCCM. It is manually installed by the user itself.
Okay. So they are manually installed by the users, but now you're trying to get them to use the newer version, like whatever is the latest version, right?
Right.
Okay, so very easy. That's why you use the supersedence method, because you don't know what versions they have out there. You have no idea, right? They could be using Mozilla 10, Mozilla 25, right? Like very, very old versions of it. All you care about is what is the latest version available. You deploy that, and you use that particular detection method. Like, hey, this is version 75. For example, I think I have 75 here. I'll show it to you real quick. And do you guys know how to get the downloads for Mozilla? Actually, I think it's HTTP or HTTP? Okay, yeah. So for Mozilla downloads, you go to ftp.mozilla.org. You go to publication. You go to Firefox. You go to releases, and then you see you have all the versions that they put out. They got the nightly builds and stuff like that. So what we'll do, let me keep going down here. Come on, almost there. Okay, so 70, 74. So the latest public one, a production one, is 75. So you go to 75, and you should go to Windows 32, and then you look for your language, I guess. I always go to ENUS, and then you have the installer here. You got the MSI, you got the EXT. This one here, you got to be careful, right? This one here that says Firefox installer, that is really not the installer. What this is it's called a sub installer. It's actually, you look at the file size, it's 312K. This one is 447 megabytes. That's kilobytes. What this is like when you go to Mozilla or Firefox.com, and you click on install, it downloads the stub installer, which actually then goes and pulls the actual installer. Like it's like a mini installer for like easy, for the end users. So this is what you do. So anyways, so I've got a copy here. All you need to do, you can just change this. You can say, you know what, I don't even need a version number here. So you point to wherever your latest application is, your most recent application. And then I think it was 75.0, if I'm not mistaken. I can go check. Yeah, I think it was 75.0. Something like this. All right. Detection method. So this is tricky, right? Because now I need to know exactly what it is. So things like Firefox and stuff like that, it is always best to install it first and then find out what the version number is. So I think I have it. Give me 1 second here. Firefox. 7398. 75007398. Okay. Seven three nine eight. I'm gonna take that. And then I don't know if I have supersedence set for the legacy, but we'll check. I have it. And I need to go. Oh, wait. Okay. Okay, so now I've got a 75. I'm going to stop deployment of this previous one. Oh, I don't have a deployment. Okay. So I'm just going to update the content because it was previously distributed. And I can do a deployment. And then you just do the usual method, like how you deploy when you want to make it available. Oh, it wasn't distributed. Oh, okay. I thought it was.
Harjit sir, one question here. Is supersedence only limited to applications which are made available?
You can do required too, but that grays out because when you're doing a required, you're obviously telling it that you are forcing that particular application to install. So supersedence is really like, yeah, definitely upgrade from one version to another, and also make it available for people that don't have it. It's the safest method to do that.
Harjit, will it delete users' favorites and bookmarks for Mozilla-like applications if we use Supersedence?
No, it should not. It's just doing the way the built-in installer, the built-in application updates its own self. No, it keeps all that profile stuff together. I've been doing this for a long time and never had any issues like that. So yeah, so basically that's what you do. You deploy it like that, right? You always keep the newer version. So if 76 comes out, you create a 76 version, you change the fake one, you use the detection, deploy it. Now any of your previous versions of Firefox will always update to the latest one.
Is there any option to kill the task of somebody is opened this Mozilla Firefox browser and we deployed this one? This will fail automatically, right?
It depends. I think when I was doing it in the past, in the last few years, there was a problem. Like if they had it open, they had some Java and things like that open in the browser and all that stuff, it would actually fail because the processors were like, hey, we're still actively using. But lately, I think it just take care of it itself. I have like a script that I can see whether I can, share that with you guys or not, where they'll go in and try to delete that stuff.
That option is also in this model, Harjit. We can use any exe or whatever is if you want to kill that one while creating the application.
Yeah.
That option is still in application model.
To kill a previous version?
Yes. Like he asking that if Mozilla is already running, can we kill that? Yes. So we can grab the exe whatever is running and we can put in application when we're creating. So there is an option when we create application. I believe in if you can open your console.
It's
maybe
called install behavior.
Yeah, right.
It's called install behavior tab on the top.
Yeah, the one that we showed earlier, right?
Right. Install behavior and then you can put whatever you want to kill before installation. Yeah.
I like your name, by the way, CM.
On the top, install behavior. Install behavior on the top.
Behavior. Very first option, install behavior. Above to journal. Yeah, here you can add whatever you want to kill.
Right.
But it will not customer to.
You need to, that's a feature in SCCM, you need to turn on that feature. If you don't have that feature turned on, in the SCCM console, then you will not see that option.
Yeah.
Can you tell me which is that feature?
I can hear you. What did you say?
No, it is a feature in SCCM. It is a feature in SCCM that needs to be turned on to get that option. I think it's called as pre-install behavior or post-install behavior or something like that. If you go to the features tab on the console, that's where it needs to be turned on to take the advantage of that feature.
I think that is inbuilt with the very first model of SCCM application. I don't think so. We need to turn anything.
Yeah. It seems like they did it automatically now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the first model, it's a feature that they introduced it. And then when you are deploying when you are scheduling your deployment, once your deployment time is done, you can you have an option to automatically close the opened applications when you are triggering the deployment. That's going to kill the deployment automatically.
Yeah, but if you are deploying that as an app level mode, then user also get a pop-up saying that you are running this application, you have to close this before.
Yep.
For required model, it's SCCM automatic clears that task for you. And someone is asking
the
about
only issue with required is like when you do a required is that they're always going to get that application no matter what. whether they need it or not. And if they uninstall, they're going to keep getting it over and over and over. So
It
there are
depends,
certain
right, Harjit?
applications, right? There are
Based on
certain
your
applications like some security stuff, right? Some, like when you're running, like you need to deploy like some security tool to check for vulnerabilities or hacking or something like that, right? They're like FireEye agent and things like that. Then you want that to be required because you want that particular tiny little agent to be on all the systems and reporting back to the the mothership to say, this system has these vulnerabilities on it or whatever, right? So it's a very use case. Like I don't deploy applications that are required unless they really have to be there. Sometimes you can deploy like particular hot fixes and things like that. You really need to, like a BitLocker hotfix or something like that. So many different things you can do.
Okay, so probably we can take. This is Anup here. Probably we can take last 2 questions or 3 because I know it's pretty late for Harjit over there. So I don't want to extend this session further, right? So probably we can take last 1 or 2 questions.
Anup, one question.
Hi, Harjit. My question.
Yeah, so it's regarding the update, right? In the Microsoft, considering Office application, right? When we are talking about update, right, it does not upgrade that application, right? While for the third party, right, we see the example from taking the Mozilla. So it is upgrading the application. So for some of the, like if you talk about Adobe, right, it does not, if there any kind of security updates like provide, so they are not going to upgrade their application. They are fixing their security bugs, right? So how that is going to manage through this application? Or in this model, it will upgrade the application. It does not show, means that will going to fix their security updates. So,
well, if they fix a security update in their application, they're always going to give you a newer version of it, right? Like, for example, Acrobat Reader here, instead of 242, it's probably going to be 275 or something like that, or 20.7. So they will give you a brand new installer for it, for you, where they have included the bug fixes or security fixes or feature updates. So you have to go and download that and then add it to your deployments, like I showed you in the, in the repository.
okay. So as per my understanding, yeah. So for third party, it will be always an upgrade. It, right?
Yes. And for applications, no matter what, it needs a manual intervention, right? You need to be the one to go get the installer, to go create the deployments and the name and the version numbers and the detection method, right? So this is why I said this is like, if you really have to, you can follow this method, but there are other tools out there if you have the budget, like Patch My PC. Patch My PC will do it automatically for you. It'll go get the installers, whatever brand new is available out there. It'll create the deployments for you. So there's so many other tools out there. Some cost a lot of money, and some, I think you can also use PS app deploy, PowerShell methods to do this stuff. So it all depends how much effort you want to do, right?
Right.
But yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Harjit.
No, so the bottom line is that you always, if you are doing applications in your organization, you always have to know, are there new versions out there? You have to keep track. You got to monitor Twitter. You got to monitor forums. You always have like a VM or another system that you have all the application, most of the applications installed there. FileZilla, Adobe, and 7-Zip, Notepad, whatever you want, right? And then you can determine whether, hey, did they release a new version out? Let me go check in the manufacturer's site and get it. And then that also helps you find the location where it's installed on the particular system to get the file number and things like that, like I showed you before, right? Like properties, details, those kind of things. So.
Okay, so last question.
Hi, Harjit.
One question.
Yeah.
Hi, Harjit.
There is a lot of background noise. If you are not speaking, can you please mute yourself? I think it's coming from Sujit. Sorry, Sujit. I think your mic is a bit bad
Hi, Harjit.
condition.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I can hear you. I think.
Hi, Harjit.
Hi.
So
Go ahead.
my question is, in my lab, I want to upgrade SAP version, and I've tested in my environment test lab. It's working fine, but whenever I deploy in production, because some of the users are used same time, SAP is running.
Yes.
So
Yep.
it is a fail.
Yes. That's what we were talking about earlier, where you have to do that. You either have to script it, like create a batch file or something like that that says, look for this location. Is it open? Is it running? And kill it before you do it, or you do that the method that these guys were telling you about earlier with the install behavior and stuff, which was
because this is a critical application in our environment. In this application, we will use so many transactions in business, so we don't kill before user information.
Yeah. So there is no.
Use that. Sorry. Just to add on that, right? Probably you can use that pop-up application, right? There is some pop-up application provided by, I think I don't remember exactly who provided that. There's a IT community application, right? Where you can publish some pop-up to the user. Please close the application or something like that, right?
Right, Anup.
Oh, the other thing you can do is also, like, if you're doing software updates and you're requiring reboots after software updates, right? So, and then you got maintenance windows set up for your collections, and like, okay, after the software updates are installed, after 1 hour or 6 hours or 8 hours, whatever, you are forcing them to reboot, then you can actually then make your deployments mandatory after that particular time frame, right? So let's say you're requiring reboots after 8 o'clock in the morning, so maybe 8:30 or something, or whatever in the morning. That is when this application installs, because after a reboot, people have not actually launched that SAP application, so you're going to get more successes that way, right? So there's always there are tricks like that you have to implement to get the success rates. Every organization is different. So.
Okay.
All right. I think
Go ahead, Sir Harjit.
No, I think we covered everything, but definitely reach out to me or whatever, and I can definitely help you guys out.
Okay, so thank you very much, Harjit, and it was really interesting and very knowledgeful session from you. And even though, like, I learned a lot of stuff today as well, right? So this is kind of very real world examples we are hearing, and we are learning, right, during these weekend sessions, right? So thank you very much, Harjit. I think all your experience with application deployment for many years you shared over here for us. I really appreciate you for that, and virtual claps for that, right, from my side, right? So
Thank you.
so very very interesting and very knowledgeful presentation. Thank you. Okay, and before we finish off, right? Tomorrow we have a session around uh, SSRS reporting and how to build SSRS report, how to design a SSRS report by Kannan. So please join us on the same time, same channel, same place, right? So once again, before we go, thank you to Harjit for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you everybody
you,
for
Harjit.
having me.
Thanks, Harjit. Thank you, Arjit. Thank you, Anup.
Bye.
Thank you, Arjit.